Hey everyone, welcome to another episode, and today we're talking about hollowing. When you should, when you shouldn't. And this giant wing I'm looking at that I supported is from the character Morrigan from Darkstalkers, and this was a print that I made from Printed Obsession. If you're interested in getting this one, you can grab it on myminifactory.com, and it is a free download, free STL. We also do sell versions of her on our site, if you're interested, printmymini.com. You can check that out, or our Etsy shop, printmymini.store. As you work your way around an object like this, you're going to notice that there's a large amount of surface area, but to be honest, there's not a whole lot of place to drain an object like this. So printing it solid is really the best way to do it, and you know, you just got to do what you got to do. I mean, unfortunately, if there's no place to do drain holes that are adequate or really work to drain, then it's not going to work. Because honestly, do you really want to give yourself more filling and sanding work later? No. Gosh, no. So, I mean, when we look at it from that standpoint, and honestly, I look at it from the standpoint of I'm selling these pieces, so I don't want to sell you a piece that's covered in holes. And so I need to look at the best way possible to make this piece. And so for me, I was like, well, you know what, I got to print this solid. This is just going to have to be a solid piece. As heavy as they are, they weigh about 52 to 53 grams a piece. So it is a pretty stocky piece. They did print pretty well, actually. I would say they print perfectly. I didn't notice any problems myself on the prints that we made. So the test prints worked great. And that's based on the supporting you're looking at here. Now, not every print's going to work perfectly every single time, but I think in the particular instance where you're talking about a big solid object like this, I think it's important to know too that you're also giving it some stability. These wings are going to hold the figurine up. They actually sit on the plate. If you notice the little the little shaved off areas at the bottom there of the tip, that actually sits on the base. So this actually sits behind the character, and technically the character is going to be leaning on this to stand her up, as her feet are kind of like these little flimsy bits that don't really hold her up all that well. Not to mention these wings are heavier than her entire figurine all together assembled, so it will actually require these wings in order to hold her up, which is another reason why I contemplated making them solid. I felt as a placeholder to actually keep her in place, it was very important to make something that was solid and heavy enough to keep her there. And I think I accomplished it with the piece, but again, it's always a complication to see how you want to support these things, especially when they're big and they're solid. Now, if we look at hollowing this, and again, I don't look at hollowing this, but this is, you know, this is one of those things that some people would go, oh, definitely hollow it, it's big, it's a long piece, it's 100 and, you know, I think 52 millimeters long from tip to tip. Okay. I mean, it is big, and I'm not going to take that away from it, but the problem still relies on the fact of where you're going to put your drain holes. And the next little segment you're going to watch here is going to show you, as I try to figure out where to put my drain holes, it doesn't work out all that well. As you can see from multiple frustrations, the drain holes don't really have many places to go. It's super frustrating. You just kind of want to go, I'm done with this. And that's when you kind of like highlight all your drain holes and say, screw this, I'm done. I'm not hollowing this part. And you do it the other way around. And of course, that means going solid and just kind of thinking about really orientation, plate balance, and making sure you have adequate supports on each part of the wing that are being printed as it goes up. Now with something like this, it's ultra important to make sure that you really focus on eyelets and making sure that your primary contacts are super strong and making sure that your overall contacts are good throughout the print. Because with something like this that's big and heavy and bulky, getting it to the proper orientation is the most important aspect when you're printing a solid piece. You get a little spoiled sometimes if you focus too much on, print everything hollow unless it's small. So when you get a big piece that you have to print like this that's not hollow, sometimes we kind of forget how to do this. So again, the reminder is orientation. Make sure you're oriented properly. Make sure the orientation is good. Now moving on, we have this Toothy Rex, which we have done some hollowing on here. And this guy is pretty cool, but he was also available in a solid piece. So if you really wanted to go crazy, you could take this guy and you could print him in one giant piece. Now I don't recommend that to anybody because again, he was really big in some areas. He had some wide surface areas in the middle. And I just feel like there was just a lot of resin being done. I'm going to show you guys. So this was a supported version of him by himself. Pretty cool looking. His mouth is facing down. Some poop load of islands there on his mouth because of all them teeth. And then you could see where some heavier supports are needed underneath. And you got some clustered supports there, some tree supports around his body. Overall, I feel like this probably would have done fine in printing. I think this support would have done fine. He would have survived. There may have been some areas that pancaked or got a little bit weird because it's very light, in my opinion, supporting on something that's about 88, 99, 90 millimeters tall. That's actually a pretty decent size, and he's a decent weight if you were to print him solid. I do have a version that we did print solid. I did not use this particular supporting. I can show you guys in a moment how we did that. And he came out okay. Very heavy, though. He's about, I want to say about 70 grams altogether. A pretty heavy chunk. Now the way we did it, we took the 3 parts. Now they have keyed versions. Now this is Toothy Rex. This is Printed Obsession. This is one of the I want to say Monster Hunter inspired pieces. So they have the tail, the body, and the mouth or the head. And these 3 parts are split. And the only fun things we did was we blocked off the arms, which prevents them from being hollowed, and that actually helps a lot because those little tiny arms don't really need to be hollowed. They can be solid, and they actually lend a little bit of support to those parts. Make them a little tougher, make them a little sterner, so that way they don't snap. Now, as you can see here, the way we supported these are the hollowed bodies, and these are supporting methods we use to create the supports for these 3 parts. And again, we balance these across the plate pretty well, but we're going to get into that to another video where we talk about some balancing and what actual balancing is and balancing your build plate. But for this particular one, we're just sticking with the hollowing topic. So these parts have been hollowed, they've been supported, everything good here. Now I've already printed these, they came out great. I'm actually working on a little diorama that involves these characters. But as you can see, look at the less surface area that you're using here. You got outlines because of the hollowing instead of those giant big patches that are being printed. And I think that makes a big difference overall when you're talking about giant prints like this and you're balancing between 3 parts. I think it's important to note that you need to understand, okay, well, if this part in the middle is a giant piece and it's going to have all this pull, well, that's not going to be any good for the pieces on the side. And again, that kind of goes into balancing, but the hollowing thing kind of improves your balancing odds. So it's something to think about when you're really considering, okay, well, do I need to hollow this part? Well, does this part create massive peel force? If it does, then yes, you do need to hollow that part. But does that part have adequate drain hole ability where you're not going to get mad about the fact that I have to fill, you know, all these holes in these weird areas? So those are things you have to consider when you think about that. I'm going to show you guys the version of the Toothy Rex that we actually did the supporting work ourselves. And it's a bit different than the one that was pre-supported. Because we have a pre-supported version, and then we have the version that we kind of took the pre-supports and said, okay, we're going to redo some of these. And as you can see, we added some additional support around the bottom, we added some additional support around the face, the head, and around the upper body, in hopes that this would help preserve some more of the detail. I use only super light feather light supports when it comes to that stuff because honestly my biggest thing is preserving the quality. But my biggest concern with something this big is how much of a surface area it prints at the same time. Now, this doesn't have a lot of time to bulk up, and you've got all this excess space down here that honestly I don't like. And I think solid objects like this that are being printed like this, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if you've got a printer that can handle this, great. My printers don't seem to like solid objects like this when they get oriented like that. So, in my opinion, the best way to do them is either to reorient it, re-support it yourself, or hollow the parts out using the keyed versions like I did. Well, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed this one and you got something out of it. Pretty much what I'm trying to get at here is hollowing isn't always a necessary evil. I talk about it all the time, and we talk about, you know, oh, hollowing, you need to make a hollow part if it's big. Not necessarily all the time, and I think this is one of the bridges I crossed myself. If a part has adequate drain hole capability, go ahead and hollow the part and use those drain holes. If there are no adequate drain holes, or you don't have a place for the resin to drain, or for air holes, things like that, then you're going to have to reconsider the possibility that you may not want to, you know, hollow it. So, anyway, don't forget to hit that subscribe, hit the bell, and like, you know, because we need all that stuff. And we'll see you all soon.